Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the PSU 365 podcast on Penn State.Rivals.com. I'm your host, Richard Schnyderite. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Dylan Callaghan-Croley. Dylan, we have a lot to go over, actually. It's been a little bit since we last recorded, so we got some news to go over.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of news to go over here, so yeah, let's just jump right into it, shall we?
Okay, awesome. So first things first, I guess the most recent news, Jim Harbaugh won the Big Ten, won the national title, and he's out because he's probably going to get a sanction if he stays any longer. So that's actually at least what it sounds like. He is now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Just talk a little bit about him leaving and how it kind of impacts Penn State, because obviously they did face off quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all just amazing that we're sitting here in this off season, and two of the biggest jobs in all of college football, Alabama and Michigan, are now going to have new coaches in 2024, and it's because their former coaches both decided to either, well, in some fashion, leave the program. So that's incredible. I don't know last time this really happened. I guess you can look at Oklahoma and USC a couple years ago, but I mean, these are arguably the two top programs in all of college football history. So that's something really to just consider and think about. But how does it affect Penn State? Well, I'm going to be interested because it does sound like Sherrone Moore is going to take that job or is going to get that job at Michigan. The Wolverines and the university technically have to have the job posted for 7 days, I think, before Moore can officially be hired. So that's another 5 days out. It'll be interesting to see if they lose anybody in the portal. I think they'll see some guys leave, but I think the reason you go with a guy like Sherrone Moore is because, one, he showed he can lead the program. He coached in an interim capacity this year and did a really good job. But also it helps keep what they have there together. They are going to still lose a lot of guys, and I still think they were going to take a step back in 2024 no matter what. But what type of coach is Sherrone Moore going to be? Obviously, he's coached 3 games. He beat Penn State. He has a top 10 win under his belt. But it'll be interesting. I have heard that they're going to increase their recruiting under Moore in terms of staffing. So I'm going to be interested to see how that affects them as well. But how does this impact Penn State? I think it was the original question, and let's get to that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously big for Penn State. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's, you could argue, a top 3 coach in college football. You could have argued he was the number 2 coach in all of college football the last few years, right behind Nick Saban, Kirby Smart. So, yeah, I mean, anytime you lose a top 5 coach in the sport from your conference, that's definitely going to impact you. But can Penn State take advantage of that? That's the question. Penn State's had opportunities before to take advantage of these types of things and hasn't been able to. Can they take advantage of Harbaugh leaving Michigan now is going to be the ultimate question. Can they take advantage of what many believe is going to be a little bit of a step back for Michigan next year? These are things that are ultimately going to be decided. I'll be interested to see how it impacts some guys on the recruiting trail. We'll get to one of those when we talk about this week's upcoming Junior Day. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously good for Penn State, but at the end of the day, I'm going to reserve judgment for now just because I think I need to see what Sherrone Moore can do on the recruiting trail the rest of this offseason, but also what he can do early next year with a Wolverines team that's losing quite a bit. And who is he going to use? Who is he going to hire to replace a guy like Jesse Minter and perhaps some other guys that they're going to lose off that staff as well? Because you could argue that Jesse Minter could be a bigger loss for Michigan than a Jim Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh could be replaced well by a guy like Sherrone Moore, but how do you replace a defensive coordinator like Jesse Minter, who's well regarded as one of the best defense coordinators in all of football, NFL, or college?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. There's a lot of assistants that could end up leaving, whether it be joining Harbaugh's staff in the Chargers, but there are a couple names on the roster that are kind of interesting. But I, for the most part, the fact that they're retaining it seems like at least most of the staff, I can't imagine most of these guys are going to enter the portal.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to see anybody of impact really leave that program
Mhm.
this offseason because of Jim Harbaugh's departure. Maybe in the
Yeah.
spring, if some guys aren't panning out or aren't going to maybe have a role that they presumed, but those aren't going to be impact guys anyway for most schools. So
Yeah. It does kind of suck that Michigan's not on the schedule for Penn State next year because you would
yeah,
love to get a first year coach and
it'd
his
be
as a
it
second
would,
year coach. I don't know what you consider him really.
yeah. I mean, 1-0 against Penn State, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would have been interesting to see how these two teams match up next year. But hey, perhaps we get surprised and Penn State meets Michigan in the Big Ten championship or something.
Yeah, very possible. Speaking of coaching changes, you did mention it before. Saban leaves Alabama, it gets replaced by Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah,
So they do face Washington this year. So
yeah.
that's a new first year coach technically. Or well, no, not really. It's Jed Fish, but first year at Washington.
First year in
So
Washington, and
yeah,
taking a big step up from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten.
hmm
Rest in peace, Pac-12, by the way.
yeah,
Um,
back two.
but yeah, I mean, Jed Fish has had a tough first couple of weeks there at Washington, losing a
Yeah,
lot of that roster to Alabama, to the NFL. I mean, I think I saw that their entire like two deep on offense is basically gone.
yep.
So I
Down
mean,
to one
it's
quarterback.
yeah,
Yikes.
it's. I wouldn't be surprised if Washington is a above 500 team next year, but they're going to take a step back from what they were this year, and that's no knock at
Mhm.
Jed Fish. I think Jed Fish is a very good coach. I do think he may have been smarter to wait a year and take the Florida job next year when it probably opens up. But I'm not making those
Yeah,
decisions. And it's easier said than done when you have millions of dollars being thrown at you. Um,
yeah. Well, that makes everything a
but
lot
yeah, I
easier.
mean, yeah, unfortunate for Jed Fisher early on, but I'll be interested to see how he does with that program going forward. And then I guess to
Mhm.
wrap up this Big Ten discussion, uh, just what an offseason Ohio State has been having here
Yeah.
the last few weeks. I mean, uh, coming into the offseason right after the national championship game, I probably had Oregon as my Big Ten favorite next year. But after these last few weeks, I think it's going to be hard for anybody in the Big Ten to knock off Ohio State next year. And I will say, if Ohio State doesn't at least make the semifinals next year, if not win it all, I mean, Ryan Day is going to have a hot seat because
hmm
they're going all out in terms of NIL. It appears this offseason, and they're putting together a hell of a roster. And if you have this type of roster and you're spending this type of NIL money, you have to go out there and definitely make it worth it.
Yeah, money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a Big Ten championship potentially. So,
Certainly can.
anyway, moving on, let's go to more Penn State related
Yeah,
topics. Owen Aliciene, I believe that's how it's pronounced,
yeah.
um, committed to Penn State over the weekend after following a Junior Day visit. He's the second offensive lineman in the class, joining Brady O'Hara. Just talk a little bit about him. I think he's a 5.63 star, so I know a lot of people always question it whenever Penn State lands a 3 star.
Yeah, no, I will say one. Shame on me. Shame on us for not really thinking about this one a little deeper. Yes, last week when it came to potential commitments,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot there was writing on the wall that this was a prospect who could have popped on there, and we just kind of overlooked that one. That's on us. But either way, yeah, I think this is a nice pickup for Penn State, and it continues a trend of Penn State and Phil Trautwein really targeting your taller, bigger offensive linemen now. People are going to say, well, isn't that the point of recruiting offensive linemen? And yes, that would be correct. But you look at the last two cycles, Penn State has now landed 4 or 5 guys who are 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", and Aliciene joins that group at 6'7", 270 pounds. Phil Trautwein is really shown a desire to recruit big, athletic offensive tackles, and by big we mean big, 6'7", 6'8". You look at the 2024 recruiting class. And let me bring it up. Brady O'Hara, by the way, also fits in that mold at 6'6". But you look at the 2024 recruiting class, Egan Boyer, 6'8", 260. Garrett Sexton, 6'7", 265. And then you got Cooper Cousins, who could legitimately play probably any of the 5 positions across the line of scrimmage at 6'6", 290. So they're recruiting elite size on the offensive line. He joins that mix. I like what I see out of Owen on film. He looks like that. He's got that mean streak as an offensive lineman. He knows how to use his size as an advantage. He gets good leverage. The strength is obviously there. I think, and I'll have a deeper article on him as a player hopefully next week. It's been quite a busy week with all the Junior Day visits for all the schools I cover, but I hope to get an Aliciene breakdown next week up. But on tape, it's easy, I think, in my opinion, to see why Phil Trautwein and Penn State really liked Owen and why they were willing to take his commitment at this point in time. I think it's a big pickup for Penn State, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy who rises up the rankings here over the next 9 to 12 months.
Yeah, so I actually had the chance to dive a little deeper into this one. I spoke to his head coach, John Woolley, who's the head coach over at Avon Old Farms, or up at Avon Old Farms, I should say.
Yeah.
He's a former college coach. He's a former assistant coach with UConn for a couple years. So he does know what it takes to get to that level. And just kind of breaking it down with him, he really compared him to a Will Beatty. I don't know if you know Will Beatty, the NFL player, played a couple years with the Giants, won a Super Bowl. And he compared him to him at UConn, just saying he was a guy that's very new to football, and we got him there and we molded him into something. And that's kind of what he was saying to me about what Trautwein's trying to do. He's trying to mold these guys. He sees the frame, he sees the height, and he's like, "Oh, perfect! You can't teach size."
It's a lump of clay, and you can mold it into what you want it to be.
Yeah, I know, and it's a cliche, like you can't teach size, but literally, like it's Trautwein just getting 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", like that's it.
Can't teach size and can't teach speed, and you look at what Penn State recruits a lot of over the last few cycles. It's elite, elite speed and elite size. And, sometimes you find both in a player, and then you got a real gem.
He's only played 2 years. Like he's got time.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we're seeing a lot to go off what you've said, and that lump of clay type of metaphor. Penn State is recruiting guys who are a little bit raw at the offensive line position. Penn State recruits a lot of offensive linemen every single year, so they have a lot of depth at those positions. They don't need these guys to necessarily come in and be impact guys by year 2. Some of them will, some of them won't. But they like these guys who are maybe a little bit on the raw side. They can mold into that player they want them to be. Perhaps these are guys they can get on campus for camps for multiple times. Somebody like an Anthony Dunca, we heard about how he camped at Penn State a ton during his recruitment, and that's a big reason why he was able to, really surprised people as a freshman, and now going to his true sophomore or redshirt freshman season is going to have a chance to be a starter for Penn State on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Garrett Sexton is a former quarterback who is now going to be an offensive lineman. Brady O'Hara plays tight end for North Catholic. He's probably going to be an offensive lineman at the next level. Aliciene has only been playing for 2 years. These guys are on a little bit of the raw side, but sometimes when you have a little bit more of a raw prospect, you can, fine tune some of the skill sets a little bit more than somebody who maybe has been playing the position a little bit longer and kind of has those not bad habits, but habits that are hard to break out of sometimes.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but when we did post that crystal ball predicting the 2025 class in October, he was one of the guys on the list. So that is number 4 on the list. We are missing a couple. We missed. I think I missed on 2, but pretty good start.
And I will also say, continuing to see Penn State just hammer away at the New England area in general. That area is really becoming a bit of a hot spot in college football recruiting for talent. And, they've had a presence up there for years. But just to continue to have that presence up there is big for Penn State, because it seems like that's only an area that's going to continue to get more talented over time because of all the prep schools up there.
Yeah, now actually kind of touching on that a little bit, it used to actually be a Michigan territory when Don Brown was at Michigan. Yep. But with Don Brown not at UMass and not being able to recruit at that level, Penn State's starting to be like the go-to program, like you just mentioned. So it's always a good sign. But other than that, the other thing I want to touch on a little bit between Aliciene and you kind of mentioned it too. So Brady O'Hara converted tight end. Garrett Sexton converted quarterback.
Yep.
Owen Aliciene only played 2 years of football.
Mm-hmm.
Should fans be a little bit kind of concerned that they're not going after the big name offensive linemen and they're just going after these guys that are either converted or brand new to the game?
No, because I think I can understand why some people would be concerned, but I think at the end of the day I wouldn't be overly concerned because for those guys, they also are recruiting guys who have played the position for a while, have that pedigree of playing the position. A guy like Cooper Cousins. Cooper Cousins has been an offensive lineman his whole high school career, and he's blossomed over the last few years, and he's going to be a guy who has a chance to make an immediate impact at Penn State. Now, Willie, that's hard to say. I mean, he's offensive linemen are. It's
Very
tough
hard
to
to
do that
predict.
as a true freshman. And then you got a guy like Caleb Brewer who comes from a program that develops a lot of really good offensive
Another
linemen.
tight end, technically.
Yeah, a jumbo athlete, but a guy who has a good offensive line background. Donovan Harbor has some things to work on, obviously, but has that pedigree. So I think they're going for a good
All-American.
mixture. But also, I think with these raw prospects, they're also seeing high upside. And, let's be honest, in today's college football world, it's harder to land those elite offensive linemen because, like in the NFL, offensive linemen, especially your elite ones, tend to get paid. And in college football, that's no different. The big, bad, strong offensive linemen, high, 5-star, high 4-star prospects, a lot of them come with I would imagine, a pretty hefty price tag NIL wise. And Penn State's NIL has improved, but hasn't improved to that degree where you can land some of those guys yet. So I wouldn't be overly concerned because I think Penn State does a good job of finding a mixture of those higher pedigree guys with the rawer prospects, but also when they need to address the offensive line in the transfer portal, they've done a good job and gone out and addressed the offensive line in the transfer portal, including this past year in, obviously knowing Rucci. Obviously, he didn't meet expectations at Wisconsin, but still plenty of upside in Rucci. And anybody, I think, if you talked about his recruitment coming out of Warwick, a lot would have said that this wasn't a kid that necessarily was going to, wow you in the first 2 years or so on campus. It was going to be the back end of his career in which, when he started to put everything together, that you saw the finished product and came away impressed. So I think Penn State maybe again Brucci at the best point of his career too.
Awesome. Just to go kind of shows you rankings. Shouldn't say don't matter, but like an old fashioned 5.84 star, number 1 tackle in the draft. Christian Haynes, who went to UConn, number 1 guard in the draft, 5.42 star. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I will say, obviously stars matter because, as we've seen, if you look at national champions and recruiting classes and stars,
Super Bowl winners,
you need stars to win big games. You need stars to win national titles. But at the same time, stars on an individual basis, I don't think necessarily are gospel because some players end up developing, some players obviously don't. Some players are just more advanced in high school, and just I think across the industry as a whole, it is so hard to evaluate because so many people and every side has almost different ways that they look at players. So I don't know how Adam and Adam like to do our rankings. I don't know how the other sites like to do their rankings, but I imagine some like to base their rankings more off projection. Some more like to base them more off of what they are as now and projection. And that's not just as a whole, but as on an individual, player basis. I do some work with Prep Red Zone, and we do our in-state rankings for Pennsylvania, and I know how hard that is just from a in-state perspective. Me and my colleague, we have different ways we like to, rank players just on our individual basis. So I definitely think obviously stars matter, but from an individual basis for players, it's definitely not gospel. And sometimes, yeah, everybody has misses, but everybody has some big hits as well. Blake Corum, one of the best running backs in the nation. Nobody had him higher ranked than rivals.
True. Very true.
So it's all individual.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit. Big Junior Day coming up this weekend too. We had the first one last weekend. We had some really good reactions from guys. This weekend, just talk a little bit about who's coming to campus, and is there potential for a commit watch here?
Yeah. So quickly, I just want to go back to last week quickly.
Andrew, we can recap last week first.
And the only thing I was going to say is coming out of last week, the two guys we're going to be probably keeping a close eye on going forward. Latrobe linebacker Alex Tash. Coming in the weekend, we had him on commit watch. He hasn't pulled the trigger just yet, but I can't see this going on much longer. I think at the very latest, this one's wrapped up by the spring. But I can see a commitment coming really anytime there. And then Andrew Olish, the tight end out of Southern Lehigh. I'm not sure I said on this podcast. I know we went on our good friend Zach Seiko's podcast over on Locked On Nittany Lions and talked about I talked about that this upcoming last weekend and said Olish was a guy, if he got an offer, would immediately be somebody we future casted and believe Penn State has a good chance of landing. He ended up getting an offer, and we still feel very good about his chances of ending up in Nittany Lion, obviously. So that's one we're going to watch. But yeah, we have a lot of good content up from last week, so be sure to go check that out. And after all these junior days are over with as well, I'm sure we'll go back and kind of look at individual basis more as well. But yeah, this weekend, let's talk about some key guys on campus this weekend.
Real quick for Andrew Olish, he will be visiting Rutgers this weekend, and then I think he has one more visit, and then he's probably, I wouldn't be shocked if he decided after that. Yeah,
I agree. I think that one is also probably a matter of when and not if for Penn State.
Yeah, no, of course. So like you said, big visitor weekend coming up this Saturday. I'm looking at the list right now. A couple commits, one future caster already in for one of the recruits, and a lot of big name guys actually come to campus. Just who are some of the ones that people should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, so I think the big one, obviously, and somebody we hinted at when we talk about Jim Harbaugh, 4-star Central Bucks East offensive tackle Michael Carroll. Penn State legacy, also a Michigan State legacy. But right now in his recruitment, it's Penn State and Michigan. It appears is the two front runners. Now, this would be a really tough loss for Penn State if they did lose Carroll to Michigan, especially with him being a Penn State legacy. When you first talked to him in his recruitment, Penn State was his dream school. So we have a future cast in for Carroll. And I still feel like Penn State has a very good chance at landing Carroll. But this is a big week, weekend visitor for Penn State to try to get some momentum back on their side with Carroll. It's been a while, I think, since he was last on campus. But, Rivals 250 prospect, top 10 prospect in the state of Pennsylvania, a prospect I think could see even more of a rise over the next couple months. He's really improved his game from year to year. Somebody I'm very high on personally as well. So that'll be something to watch. Just how can Penn State continue to strengthen their standing with Michael Carroll? By no means is he on commitment watch, but definitely they're big. The biggest target on campus this weekend. Safety Jadon Blair out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, another player to watch, another top target for Penn State in this cycle. So we'll be interested to see how that one goes from big safety, 6'4", 185 pounds. So he is amongst their top targets at that position. Obviously, they already have one commitment in Amari Gaines. Correct. Doing well with Kanoa Winston, who was on campus last weekend as well.
Xavier Bridges-Brooks also said that Penn State's his favorite right now, but we'll see where that kind of shuffles out.
Right. So Blair will be somebody that we'll see how that recruitment overall goes and where he stands coming out this weekend. Beyond that, a couple other guys worth noting. Texas wide receiver Taz Williams Jr. will be on campus.
Intrigued about him.
Yeah, top 150 prospect coming in, number 115 nationally, top 25 wide receiver. Pittsburgh native, has a lot of ties to Pennsylvania, so that will be very intriguing to see if Penn State could perhaps become a legitimate contender in his recruitment with a strong visit this weekend. He'll be on campus. So will offensive lineman Connor Carty out of Prosper, Texas. That's a really intriguing visitor as well, a top 250 prospect. Received an offer earlier this month, scheduled this visit quite quickly. So that's to me at least shows that he has pretty high interest in Penn State. So we'll see how that visit goes. If it goes well, perhaps Penn State gets an official visit down the road.
Yeah.
Other guys I'm intrigued by. Buford, Georgia tight end Hayden Bradley really blown up the last few weeks. Including an offer from Penn State. He's going to be on campus. Penn State is really expanding their board. Not really, maybe not a tight end, but they're really expanding their board at offensive line. Going back to Carty, but they're keeping their options open at tight end as well. As we mentioned, Brady O'Hara probably projects to an offensive lineman in the next level. We already talked about Andrew Olish as well, but they're still in it for guys like Nate Roberts, Lincoln Cure, Hayden Bradley, and a few others. So they're keeping their options open at tight end. I think they would take two if it's the right players.
Okay.
Beyond that, Imhotep Charters Jabri Wallace Coleman is supposed to be on campus this weekend. Now, he was supposed to make multiple visits in the past, but never did. So I'll be interested to see now that he's decommitted from Georgia. Is he a guy that Penn State has a legitimate chance of landing? Penn State obviously has 2 running back commits in this class. They're not worried about either one of those commitments, but this is a program that's turning out running backs. They could very well lose 2 running backs at least next offseason, just the NFL alone. So I don't think taking 3 running backs this cycle is out of the question. So this could be a good weekend to see where Jabri Wallace Coleman's recruitment stands overall and where Penn State stands in that recruitment.
I will say real quick on Jabri Wallace Coleman before we go any further. From what I'm being told, he's a Syracuse lean, it sounds like, kind of. And I feel like that's kind of fair. Like you said, Penn State has 2 commits already, so they're not really pushing for a Coleman, but they would obviously, I think they would have to take the top 60 player in the country in Jabri Wallace Coleman. But he has Penn State Saturday, Rutgers Sunday, and supposedly going to Syracuse next week. He's very, very close with Fran Brown, being from South Jersey, Philly area, and that's Fran Brown's ties. And now that Fran's the head coach of Syracuse, it's a big reason why he decommitted from Georgia in the first place. So it sounds like they're the team to beat, but I don't know if it's really to beat for the sole fact that, again, Penn State already has 2, and they're very content with those 2. And they should be.
Absolutely. And there is a large group of Imhotep Charter prospects coming up. You can see that full list, obviously, over at Happy Valley Insider, PennState.rivals.com. If you're not a subscriber, you can take advantage of our free 30-day free trial. HVI30 is the code for that. And then my last 2 notes when it comes to visitors. 2 defensive end prospects were going to be who are supposed to be on campus, and we'll be interested to see how their visits go. Ramondo Johnson out of Coconut Creek, Florida will be on campus, and Riverdale Baptist, Maryland defensive end Cortez Harris. The reason those 2 are guys that we're going to be interested is because perhaps more than any other position, the defensive end board for Penn State in the 2025 recruiting cycle is kind of a big question mark right now. Just who is on that board? How is that board lining up? Zahir Mathis is committed to Ohio State, and then kind of surprisingly, Ari Wofford ended his recruitment this week, committed to Clemson. Which that one definitely stinks. Penn State, they both stink. You obviously want to keep elite in-state talent in state. I will say I wasn't overly impressed by Zahir Mathis's sophomore season, junior season for Imhotep. I still think he's a really high potential player, but I think perhaps there's some questions there. Ari Warford, I think, is going to be a fantastic player at the next level. But Johnson and Harris, coming out of this visit, we should get maybe a better understanding of where those 2 rank on Penn State's board and where they rank with Penn State Harris out of Maryland, a 4-star prospect, could definitely be a guy to watch going forward if all goes well this weekend. And then finally, just looking ahead to the 2026 class, Penn State has a really nice contingent of 2026 prospects on campus, but 2 4-star prospects currently in a 6'3" Trinity Episcopal wide receiver Davion Brown, a Virginia prospect. Trinity Episcopal is actually going to send a couple prospects up this weekend. He's a 4-star kid. And then cornerback Elbert Hill out of Akron, Ohio, top 100 prospect in 2026 class. Penn State's done a great job there so far. We'll see if they can continue to do a good job with a strong visit this weekend. But I imagine with at least Hill, they're going to be in that one for quite a while, if not all the way. But that's, I always like to say that Ohio, when it comes to elite prospects, Ohio State has right to refusal for most high-end prospects within the state. So we'll see how that one goes, but definitely an Ohio State, Penn State battle early on there, and I'm sure, some other top-notch schools are going to find their way into that recruitment. He has offers from some tremendous programs, Michigan, Notre Dame. So, I wouldn't be shocked if that ultimately ends up his top 4 of, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Now, 2 names you didn't mention that I'm personally going to be keeping a close eye on.
Sure.
2 Jersey guys. Desi Jones, wide receiver out of DePaul Catholic. I'm not really sure where he falls on the board currently. You might know more than I do, but he's
definitely a guy that they have pretty notable interest in.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times the campus last year. 3 of those were for games this past fall. He was at campus for Junior Day last year. It's a guy that I think you really have to keep a close eye on just because he's top 10 or number 11 in the state of New Jersey, top 75 wide receiver. It's not the 4-star that everyone screams that they want it and all that, but it's still a pretty damn good prospect out of DePaul. He's got several Power 5 offers, but he has the school he's been to the most was Penn State. He's got Ohio State, he's got Rutgers, Syracuse, Texas, Virginia Tech. Like the list goes on and on. So he's one I'm keeping a close eye on. Yep. And then Cameron Miller down at Winslow Township.
Yeah,
he's also a receiver / DB type, mostly a receiver though. For Winslow obviously has Bill Belton as the head coach.
Yep.
So definitely keep an eye out something there.
Christian Hackenberg was working there for a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Johnny Shakir they were gonna take last year, and it seems like if Winslow has a good kid, like a high level prospect, they're more than likely probably going to lean towards Penn State, and that's what kind of it sounds like the same thing's happening here with Miller. He's number 7 in state, top 30 athlete in the country. Again, a ton of offers. Georgia, Ohio State. I think he's a top list already, actually. Georgia, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Rutgers, Syracuse, West Virginia, Wisconsin. He's visited 4 of those, but most of his visits, again, to Penn State. He's been to Penn State 8 times since 2021, so this is going to be 9.
Here's a question for you. Since you're a little bit more tapped into New Jersey, obviously, losing Cleo Ahmad for Penn State was huge because of his ties to New Jersey. It's only been a few weeks, but do you think Penn State's abilities in New Jersey are going to be hurt by Ahmad's departure, or do you think because of Ahmad they've built up those connections again? And plus, they also have that commitment from Amara Gaines, whose father is, he's got strong connections in New Jersey as well, which certainly helps.
I'm glad you said that. So, for starters, I'll answer your first question first. I think losing him definitely hurts. I don't think you don't have anyone on staff really that can connect with Jersey kids as much.
Yeah.
That's like a full-blown fact, and it sucks to say that, but it is what it is. They had Stacey Collins recruiting New Jersey, which I really questioned a lot. I didn't like that move for them. I think you have to get someone that knows Jersey. Like Jersey guys respect other Jersey guys. It's a weird, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a mafia Italian mob type thing. So,
definitely has that aspect to it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I think they had
Sopranos-ish.
I mean, go way back. I think he's from New Jersey, and he's from Philadelphia. But Phil Galliano, I think they had recruited New Jersey a while back, and Philly's not New Jersey, but it's close enough.
Yeah, we make jokes about it all the time. Me and like some of the analysts, and it's such a tough place to recruit. And I think, honestly, at the end of the day, losing Ahmad, who was a Jersey guy, definitely hurts. He was friends with every coach throughout the state. And I make jokes saying all the time, like, there's only two guys that can really out-recruit anyone in the state of New Jersey, and now they're both on the same staff at Syracuse in Fran Brown and Elijah Robinson. No one else can recruit the state like they do, and it's going to be tough, I think. I think Penn State is going to have a couple issues with Jersey, but that being said, they've built up quite the repertoire with, like, a DJ McClary, who's committed, obviously.
They've built up good equity in New Jersey.
Yeah, they've done pretty well with that, and it's close enough to Jersey that even, like, the western part of Jersey, or I should say even the eastern part of Jersey, it's only 4 hours away, I think. So they can still get there. It's still a local school. It's still obviously a big school. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Jersey and who they assign to the state. I think personally, if you want to get back in the state, you have to assign someone like a big name. You need to get like a Sider out there. Or I don't want to say Hagans, because Hagans doesn't impress me with his recruiting so far. So, and I think that's a fair little knock on him too, to be fair.
Yeah, perhaps they assign a guy like Phil Trautwein out there, a New Jersey native. Trautwein's been, by the way, all across the country over the last few weeks, and I've been meaning to put it to actually. I've been putting together the last few weeks a maps for the couple of schools I help cover of where their coaches have stopped on the recruiting trail.
Nice.
But I'm going to see who stopped in Jersey lately. But before we go off that, did you have anything else on New Jersey? I think
just to kind of finish it up real quick. Like, for example, like Winslow Township kids, they should be able to beat out just about anyone because Bill Belton's in their ear. Bill Belton's the head coach. He's a Penn State alum. Bleeds blue and white. Like, there's no question there. So I do think they'll have their opportunities, and I think that's where like a Desi Jones and a Cameron Miller this potential weekend could potentially both commit. Maybe not. But yeah, I do think getting back in Jersey is going to be a little bit tougher without Khalil Ahmad on staff. And they tried to keep him. They tried, but he's very tight with Fran, so it makes sense. He's got a little bit of a pay bump, bigger role, and all that stuff too up in Syracuse. I was going to say something else about Jersey, and I can't remember what it was. But yeah, that's really all I got for now.
So I haven't been able to update it just yet this week. But when last time I did look, Penn State early this month had a couple visits out of New Jersey, but that was
I know what I was going to say.
James Franklin, Andy Koltanicki, Dion Barnes, and Tom Allen came along with a couple of those.
Dion would be a good one.
So I do wonder if Dion's going to be the area recruiter for New Jersey going forward. Obviously a Philadelphia guy. Close enough. And they recruit northern New Jersey up court towards Newark a lot. So, Dion being a Philadelphia guy probably can connect well with those kids up near Newark and the inner city up there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, I wanted to mention this before, and I forgot, but now I remembered. Amari Gaines kind of intrigues me. I don't know if he's going to stay committed. I think Syracuse is going to make a serious push for him.
Sure.
And that could hurt a little bit too with New Jersey, because if you keep Gaines as a commit, that's good. Because his dad is like the most powerful Pop Warner coach in the state of New Jersey. He gets the best kids every year. For example, his Pop Warner team growing up had Jameer Joseph, 4-star, Quincy Porter, 4-star, Yasin Willis, 4-star. The list goes on and on. Desi Jones, I think, was one. Kaj Sanders, you remember, his Penn State target, 4-star. Like, he had a lot. He gets every good kid like in the state to play for his Pop Warner team, and they won like national championships multiple years in a row. Sure. So definitely, if you can keep Gaines, it's huge for Penn State recruiting others. But if you don't get him, I think it's going to make it even tougher. But Syracuse is making a serious push there. I think Syracuse is going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass for Penn State when it comes to recruiting New Jersey. The rest of the country probably won't really affect them that much. Maybe Philly a little bit, but yeah, that's all I got for my Jersey talk.
Interestingly enough, they did have Terry Smith and Tom Allen visit Henry Snyder up in Jersey City. So Perhaps Terry Smith is another name that we could look at as being a guy who recruits New Jersey.
Yeah, no, for sure. Tom Allen, obviously, position coach, so I don't think he's going to be doing it.
Yeah, right. I think Tom Allen and Colton Nicky right now more so just going out there just to
show face. Hey,
show face.
New logo, look.
Exactly. Get to know some of these prospects. Because, I mean, Andy Colton Nicky, especially these East Coast guys, I don't imagine he was able to talk. He was talking to many Jersey kids at Kansas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tom Allen probably was, because Indiana did a good job under Tom Allen of really recruiting out of more than just the Midwest region and recruiting to the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's something as Indiana program you have to. You have no really choice. You can't stay out in the Midwest because you're going to lose everyone to every other school.
Which we didn't talk about before, but that Indiana program recruited Florida pretty well. Obviously, they weren't landing elite prospects there, but they recruited Florida pretty well during his time there in Bloomington. So that's something else to watch with Tom Allen going forward. Is that's just another guy that they have on the staff who has some connections to Florida because he coached down in Florida, and that'll be some that's always a positive as well.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time down in Florida, actually. 1, 2, 3 schools, 3 high schools, I believe, 4. I don't know what this one is.
Even the Southeast in general, because he had that time at Ole Miss.
Yeah, forgot about that as well. 2 years there, 3 years, 20. Yeah, 3 years. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. But I think that's really all I got. You got anything else?
No, not really. I mean, I guess we didn't really. Did we talk about the special teams hire the other?
Oh, we did not. So we can talk about the special teams hire. That's a good hire, but I just don't.
I mean, we may have mentioned it briefly last time. I forget it. It feels so long ago. As somebody said, I mean, the national championship was only 2 weeks ago. It feels like a month and a half ago. Just because of college football never stops. But I think it's a very good hire to hire Justin Lustig, somebody that they've had a lot of interest in for quite a while now. They've talked to him when this had that opening before, and this time they are able to have the alignment from top to bottom that allows them to have the monetary resources to go out and hire these type of coaches. So I think it's an elite hire. Now that I'm remembering it, I do think we talked about it because we talked about his time at Syracuse.
Yes.
So I think we did talk about it. But in case you didn't hear that last pod, we both think it's a great hire and that it's it's going to be a beneficial one for Penn State and probably one that, barring a really good head coaching job coming available, somebody they could probably keep around. Which you look at the 2 of the 3 coordinators they've hired this year. Colton Nicky is probably somebody who could get a head coaching job in a couple of years quickly if he does well, even next year.
He's on Buffalo's short list, apparently. Short list. Buffalo reached out, apparently.
I wouldn't be surprised with his connections there as well. But and for what it's worth, I think Colton Nicky would be a tremendous head coach because he seems like a great people person. But you look at Tom Allen, you look at Lustig. Those are 2 guys that probably aren't jumping at any head coaching job in the near future. So you could have quality sustainability at those 2 positions going forward. It's not the word that I'm looking for, but
continuity.
That works too.
That's close.
They're going to stick. They're probably going to stick around for if all goes well, a while. So
I can't imagine Tom Allen leaving for anything less than another Power 5 job. Colton Nicky probably in the same boat, just because. And you see it now, actually. If you look at Alabama specifically, they just hired Buffalo's head coach and South Alabama's head coach to be not even like coordinators, assistants.
Yeah.
And the big Power 5 programs like the Penn States, Ohio States, Alabama's, et cetera, of the world, you're going to get paid probably more than you're going to get paid for head coaching in the G5s right now, especially in the MAC or anything like that. So it's not worth it for most coaches to do it. So I think if you're Tom Allen, Andy Colton Nicky, you kind of just wait around and say, hey, if you want to hire me, I need either a very, very good G5 job or a power 4 job. Power 4, power 5.
Did forget to mention one thing, something that we were able to confirm yesterday. Let me pull it up here.
What do we got going on?
Penn State basketball, which since the last time we discussed them, has been quite up and down. But Penn State will be hosting Canada strong forward Hudson Ward on an official visit this weekend. So that is something to definitely watch for them. He has a couple offers, I think. Penn State offered him in December. Also holds offers from Long Beach, San Diego, and Rice. So, I mean, I think it's, if everything goes well, a very winnable recruitment for Penn State and Mike Rhodes. He was recently on visits to both Rice and San Diego. Also, looks like he took a visit to New Mexico as well. But he'll be on campus this weekend for Penn State. Good sized prospect, 6'7", 210, 2024 recruiting class. So could be a nice little late addition here for Mike Rhodes to that 2024 recruiting cycle.
Yeah, so there's only one video I could find of him, and it was intriguing to say the least, because the first highlight was him banking in a 3-point shot, and I was like, that's a bold move to make that your first clip of your highlight tape, but I guess it went in, so it counts. But no, he's a guy that looks like he's more of a driver than a shooter. Kind of an athletic. I can't even say 3-and-D, just a D wing. He moves really well, good footwork. Actually has some decent dribble moves, and literally has gotten contact on him on every single layup attempt or dunk attempt. Doesn't shy away from it, almost like thrives with it. But he does have an occasional 3 he can hit. Good dribble moves, good wing. Not as athletic as I think I'd like him to be, but he does get above the rim. So he does play above the rim, I should say. Intriguing kid. I feel like he should have more offers, but being in Canada, it's very hard for some of these kids to get eyeballs on him. I know he did play in the EYBL in 2022. I didn't find his 2023 stats, but he played for UPlay, which is like a big Canadian team that's produced quite a few Big Ten prospects.
He also played on the Canada U17 World Cup team. Recently, and he did all right. That he had two 10-point performances against Lebanon and Spain. He had 5 rebounds against Lebanon, had 7 points and 5 rebounds against Argentina as well in 21 minutes. Up and down shooter. I mean, 40%, 57%, 33%, 28%. Not a volume guy by any means, but quality shooter. And it'll be interesting how this one goes. Could be a nice little late addition for him, or be a nice little late addition for Penn State.
Yeah, it seems like a solid defender. I guess I take it back, actually. He's more athletic than I thought the more tape I watch. But yeah, average shooter. I'd be a little shocked if Penn State doesn't end up getting him. Those other schools don't really scream basketball to me for the most part. I mean,
at the end of the day, I know Penn State may not be the sexiest basketball program in the country right now, but at the end of the day, you're still getting an opportunity to play Power 6 college basketball.
Yeah, not to mention it's the closest school to the home of Canada.
Yeah, so. Right. He's out of, I guess it depends. Is he out of Toronto?
I don't even think it matters because it's Rice, San Diego, and
New Mexico. If he's from Western Canada, it could be.
I guess it could be.
But in the 2022 World Cup U17, last thing on him, 7 games played, 18 minutes per game, 5.9 points, 2.9 rebounds per game. Also averaged basically a blocked shot and 1.3 steals per game. So
he's like upper Alberta, so it's maybe San Diego, but it's far. It doesn't matter.
It's far for anybody. Far. So distance probably not a factor, but Mike Rhodes throughout his career at VCU showed the ability to develop big guys like him into quality players, including a couple of them on Penn State's roster right now. So
For sure.
Definitely something to watch here this weekend, and we're hoping to catch up with him after the visit as well.
Yeah, I do want to say one more basketball thing actually
Sure.
before we sign off. The Big Ten, well, it's starting to leak out. The Big Ten tournament or Big Ten's going to stick to 20 league games next year. They will not be changing that. It'll still be 20. So you'll get a lot of just home games. You'll get a lot of just away games, not as many home and away games, or home and whatever. You know what I mean? But the weirdest thing in the world that they're doing, and I think it's beyond stupid, they're going to have 15 of their 18 teams in the tournament for the Big Ten Conference tournament next year. Why 15? I think they didn't explain yet because the official release isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming whoever wins the conference in the regular season is probably going to get a bye while everyone else has to play.
Makes sense.
But it's just, I hate that. I think it's just dumb. It's just I don't know. I don't agree with 15. Make it 16. Everyone, and then just give 2 byes. Give first and second seed a bye.
Right.
I don't like the logic. 15 just seems completely illogical to me. I think you should have either went to 14 or you should have went to 18. I should say. Keep it 14. It's at, or go to 18. We'll give everyone a chance and be like, hey, add a day. Screw it. Whatever. We'll add another day of just random basketball.
And we keep adding on here quickly, but the final thing I got. Penn State men's basketball obviously has been an up and down season so far. 9-10. They are currently, 1-3 in their last 4 games. It's been a struggle this month. 2-4 overall.
Last in the Big Ten in net.
Yeah. First season of Pat Rhodes, 19 games in the season. So we're a little bit past the halfway mark. Just what have your thoughts been? I personally, I think this is probably what should have been expected. If you looked at a lot of the national guys, they projected Penn State to finish in the bottom part of the Big Ten. But I think what's big for me is that Penn State, despite maybe not against Michigan State and Purdue, which I think you can make an argument, despite what Michigan State's done this year, still has the ability to make a Final Four run later this year. If they did, so nobody would be surprised. Purdue obviously could maybe not choke this year and do that as well. But for the most part, this is a team that's been pretty competitive in Big Ten play, which I think there's no moral victories in sports, really, but in a sense, is a moral victory. I think Mike Rhodes has his program going in the right direction. You can see that culture that he's trying to instill being built, and it's shown on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, like you said, this season is just basically what it was supposed to be. Came in with 3, 4 scholarship players, maybe even less than that technically.
I think 2. I think they returned 2. They returned 2 from last year, or whatever it was.
But some of most of these games, they're games they're not going to win most of the time. And it's a first-year coach. He kind of just put together a bunch of random pieces just to see, hey, I need a team. I need scholarship dudes. Look at what TCU women's basketball is going through. They're starting walk-ons because they don't have enough players. It's insane. And it's not just a walk-on. They just had walk-on tryouts. And then the 3 girls that were high school champs walked on and all made the team. They're like, shit, come on. I don't care. We need to play.
And I think the other thing is that they're missing this year. 2 things. Obviously, they don't have the size to compete in the Big Ten against the elite teams.
Yep.
But also last year, you look at it, and it's really more impressive when you look at it in retrospect. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys last year who played in 29 or more games who shot 40% or 38% or more from 3-point range.
Which is insane.
Yeah, and if you want to take Michael Henn out of that because he shot 13, 3 or 31, whatever.
Professional.
But all of that you still have 7 guys then who shot above 38% this year. Jameel Brown is shooting 40%. Kanye Claire's shooting 38%. But beyond that, they don't have many guys that they can reliably trust to knock down those threes. Zach Hicks obviously has that potential, but he's just been hot and cold this year. He's shooting 30% from 3, 31 for 103. Ace Baldwin has been up and down. they just don't have the 3-point shooting to make up for that lack of size this year. And I think that's, you can miss one and probably make up for it with the other. But when you're missing two, it's just not a recipe for success, especially in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, for sure. Also, I mean, like if you look at the games, if you take away the Bucknell game because that one's just a disaster class, but the rest are games like they're not really expected to win. Like most of these games, they probably were going to lose. Like the VCU team, it's what Mike Rhodes built basically, and they returned most of their players. They lost to Georgia Tech, who is probably their worst loss in the net, not counting Bucknell. But that's a good Georgia Tech team. They beat Duke this year. They beat a bunch of teams, minus their last 6 games. They've had a pretty damn good season. They were 1 point away from beating them too. Other ones like you got an upset against Wisconsin. You got a notable win, which is huge for a first-year coach.
Yep.
Get you a little momentum. And then if you look at the upcoming schedule, it's 97 Minnesota, 100 Rutgers, 98 Indiana. Those are 3 very winnable games, and I think tomorrow they're actually favored by a point and a half. So let's see if they can pull that one out. Kind of ruined Ben Johnson and Minnesota, although I think they're better than 97 in the net. But
Minnesota's been weird. They can be really tough to beat any given night, and then other nights they just look like the team from last year. Ben Johnson, that's going to be an interesting one to watch just in the Big Ten as a whole. Has he done enough for Minnesota after this season to keep his job with the Golden Gophers? But I agree with you when you look at their schedule. Absolutely, there's very few losses you can really complain about. Obviously, that Bucknell loss is the big one that really stands out. But other than that, they've been competitive in most of their losses outside of Michigan State and Purdue, which we said 2 teams that can easily make a Final Four run. Northwestern, a team that is well on their way to looking to make a second straight NCAA tournament for the first time in their program history. They only lost 2 by 4. You said the Georgia Tech loss, Maryland in overtime. They've been competitive for the most part, but they'll have their chances to finish the season out on a high note. They got Maryland, they got Minnesota twice, they got Rutgers once, they got Indiana twice, and they got a couple other teams there they could definitely be competitive with. So,
so
that's all I got. Penn State did just announce though, blue-white game scheduled for April 13th, 2 p.m. So.
Woo!
78 days until Penn State football returns.
Your calendars. What time? 8 p.m.?
2 p.m.
Oh, 2 p.m. I was like, a night one. No, never mind. Day one again.
2 p.m. April 13th. We'll see if it's tough on us this year.
I don't know if anyone else actually announced theirs, did they?
A couple of dates were announced, but I haven't seen anything television-wise.
I'd assume that's going to be the only one for the Big Ten that day. If I had to guess, they try to space them out pretty evenly.
Yeah, I know. Especially for a program like Penn State, they try to avoid scheduling the same days as an Ohio State and some others. But they all do because they all want to host guys on campus that week. So
yep, of course. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure that visitor list will get going relatively soon. In the meantime, we also have, like you mentioned before, last weekend's Junior Day visitor list, this weekend's Junior Day visitor list, the sort of pseudo Junior Day next weekend as well.
They're telling recruits it's a Junior Day visit. So
okay, so we'll count it as that. It is a Junior Day visit. So that's 3 of them. Bunch of recruits, bunch of big names. We're gonna have recaps starting Saturday nightish, maybe Sunday, depending on when the kids get back to us at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a toss up with some kids. Some kids will get back to you within 5 minutes. Some kids will get back to you within a day and a half.
So
I guess
we'll see what happens there.
Very last thing. Philadelphia defensive end Landon Strange is set to make an commitment tomorrow. We are not expecting that to be Penn State. Correct?
Yeah. Nope. I'm expecting it to be Syracuse, who we just had a 2-day visit with this past weekend.
Okay. Well,
so
pretty good indication.
Don't be shocked, like when everyone's like, they beat out Penn State, and it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if that kid flipped 2 more times, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see really as a whole for Syracuse how they do with their prospects. They do end up getting committed because they're going to have a lot of momentum, I think, this spring and summer. But can they keep that momentum in the fall when they're 2-5?
Have you looked at their schedule?
Well, I mean, their schedule is good.
It's but I'm talking like holy cross, new head coach. UConn had 2 wins last year. The ACC didn't even make the playoffs.
Okay, they may start off hot, but as they usually do at Syracuse, they'll start off hot and then drop 5 or 7 games in the season.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But we should probably actually wrap it up.
It's been. I just realized we're on an hour. Let's
one
wrap
more
this one.
thing. Maybe that's the new name of the pod. One more thing. But
one more thing. Yeah.
But I got nothing.
All right, for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the PSU 365 podcast. Signing off.